Welcome to Living Well with MS Coffee Break, a part of the Overcoming MS podcast family, made for people with multiple sclerosis interested in making healthy lifestyle choices. Today, you'll meet someone living with MS from our global Overcoming MS community. Our guests will share their personal perspective on the positive and practical lifestyle changes they have made which have helped them lead a fuller life. You can check out our show notes for more information and useful links. You can find these on our website at overcomingms.org/podcast. If you enjoy the show, please spread the word about us on your social media channels. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. So, get your favourite drink ready and let's meet our guest. Welcome to Living Well with MS Coffee Break number 20, where we are pleased to welcome Gillian Robertson as our guest. As always, your comments and suggestions are welcome by emailing podcast@overcomingms.org. We hope you enjoy this episode's conversation with Gillian, originally from the UK and now living in Switzerland. Gillian, our audience wants to know a little bit about you and your life, so could you share some background on where you're from, what you do, any snippets of your family or personal life, or anything about you that would give our listeners a sense of who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I was originally born in Yorkshire, brought up in the UK, went to university also in the UK, and then as part of my degree, I went off to Italy to study. I was studying history of art, and that really gave me kind of wanderlust, and from that point on, I always really enjoyed travelling. So when I got the opportunity to move with my job to Switzerland, I think it's about 18 years ago now, I took that opportunity and I've been here ever since. So I'm living in a ski resort now with my husband. We've got 3 grown-up daughters who are all back in the UK. And relatively recently, I changed career and retrained, and now I'm working as a private chef.
So is that for like ski resort customers and things like that?
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, it's quite seasonal. So I basically go out and cook for people who either come on holiday and rent a chalet or who own their own chalet. And, you know, often they don't want to cook when they're on holiday. They haven't got time. Or we live in quite a small resort, so they don't want to sort of eat in the same restaurants every night. So it's an alternative to that.
Okay, and how about your experience with MS? So could you give us some context on when you were diagnosed and how you initially coped with having MS?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was back in 2016. I'd always been fairly fit and I enjoyed sports, especially running. And I suddenly started just to feel very weird sensations in my feet, either sort of tingling or numbness. And I even I was kind of tripping up a lot, which I couldn't understand. And gradually this feeling sort of spread up my legs and really ended up affecting sort of the whole of the lower half of my body. And I started obviously going, I went to the doctor, and it was quite interesting because I had a series of tests. First of all, he thought it might be a blood clot, which is a bit strange. Then he even, and something we laugh about a lot now, he even suggested that I might have one leg shorter than the other. And I couldn't quite understand why that would suddenly affect me now when it hadn't affected me, you know, for the whole of my life. And it was actually, finally, I went to see another doctor who asked me a lot of questions, carried out some tests, and then he said, I think you need to go for an MRI. I think you've got a problem with your something in the spine. And so after that, sure enough, the MRI showed that there were lesions on my spine. And it took about, it was probably 7 or 8 months after that, with more MRIs, a lumbar puncture, and more lesions appearing actually on the MRIs that they then gave me the diagnosis of MS. I didn't have anything on the brain, still don't have anything on the brain, but obviously it was a huge shock. And during that whole time I was having physiotherapy because it had affected my balance quite a lot. And gradually over, I would say, over a year, I guess, my symptoms gradually subsided and I was able to start gradually doing some sport again.
And how did you come across OMS, and why did you start to follow that program?
Yeah. Oh, it was interesting because obviously here in Switzerland, I have a very good neurologist. She wasn't prepared to recommend me anything other than disease-modifying drugs. I did decide to go with a drug, but I started doing a lot of research on my own. And actually, I think it was through the MS Society in the UK. I think it was through their website that I found a link to Overcoming MS. And I did a lot of reading around different diets. And at the end of the day, the Overcoming MS program just seemed to me, because it wasn't just diet, because it was a whole kind of lifestyle, and came at the condition from lots of different angles. It just seemed to make an awful lot of sense to me. And so I got the book, read it from cover to cover, and decided, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. And speaking with my neurologist, she certainly said, well, it's definitely not going to do you any harm. And it's a very healthy way of living and eating. So if you feel like it's going to help you, then go for it.
That's almost exactly the same experience I had, and I think that really helps.
Oh, really?
Some people have a very negative experience from neurologists, but my neurologist said it's not going to do you any harm. It will probably help you in terms of heart disease, diabetes, absolutely, all these other things, and
exactly.
And it's not proven, but yeah, it might work, and it won't do you any harm. Certainly, doing that, it's not a weird and wacky, removing. Vegetables from your diet or something like that. It's sensible eating, and it will be healthy for you. So and what are some of the challenges that you've faced in adopting OMS?
Yeah, well, I mean, from the diet point of view, it wasn't too bad for me because when I was younger, I had been vegetarian for several years. So I was used to, and I didn't eat cheese then either. It wasn't just meat that I cut out. I cut out cheese. So I was sort of used to, looking for options. I think personally, the hardest thing for me to cut out was probably cheese, actually, because I love cheese. But even now, I've started, there's something I buy now, which is a cashew-based cheese rather than some of the more processed ones, which I enjoy. And because I'm such a foodie and I love cooking, then I just saw it more as a bit of a challenge to adapt favourite recipes. I think one of the things with taking the drug that I take Gilenya. And of course, one of the risks with that is increased risk of skin cancers. So in terms of getting your vitamin D, that's a bit of a challenge. So I do take vitamin D supplements and I'm very careful in the sun. And then I think the main one for me, which I think is a lot of people find difficult, is trying to fit meditation and mindfulness in. I did start really trying very hard to meditate at the same time every day for 30 minutes. And I think I probably did it for about 3 weeks and then was falling off the wagon. So I find now that, I run on my own, and I find that, I think that helps with mindfulness. I try to do yoga twice a week, and I do a class. It's an online class, and there is some meditation at the end of that. And then I've also been using, for about a year now, I use one of these sleep apps, and there's I do a very short sort of guided meditation most nights with that. So I'm finding different ways of fitting it in, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think you can, certainly running can be a very mindful activity because you're still in the moment, and
absolutely,
you don't have to be stressing about bills or whatever. You can just be thinking about the environment you're in, and the actual simple activity of putting one foot in front of the other can be quite mindful. Because I used to do like long distance running, and sometimes you kind of like completely in the zone, and you're literally you are being very mindful.
Exactly. I mean, often people say to me, well, why don't you go running with someone else? And I say, well, for exactly that reason. I'm trying to use it as a time when I can completely zone out of everything. Yeah.
And what benefits have you seen from following OMS?
Well, I mean, I would say, certainly in terms of following the program and taking the drug, I feel incredibly fortunate because now it seems to have completely stabilized everything, and I haven't had any progression now for a few years in terms of increased number of lesions or anything like that. Being totally honest, I think I would find it very hard to say whether it's the drug or the program or the combination of the two that's really helping. But I think I certainly feel healthy. In terms of the way I eat, and in terms of the way it encourages you to exercise. I think that's also great. And I would also say it's really helped me with a positive attitude towards the condition, and really feeling like I'm not just taking a drug, but I am actively doing something myself towards managing my condition.
And I think that's actually talked about in the book as well. The actual act of doing something, it actually helps you. There's a lot of, there's the whole sort of placebo side of things. It's like it works. But there's a reason you test against placebos, because placebos work. So actually, that idea that you're doing something and it will have an effect just by the fact that you are doing something and you're thinking you're getting better. Your body can help along the way.
Exactly.
So you've been a contributor to the OMS program, so you contribute recipes, for example. So could you describe your experience and what you get up to with contributing towards OMS?
Yeah, sure. When I got the opportunity to volunteer, I thought, well, it's that classic thing of, I feel like overcoming MS is really helping me. So what can I give back? And of course, because I'm sort of involved with food and cooking, that seemed to be one of the really obvious things that I could help by contributing recipes. And I've been testing recipes as well. And I've just found my interaction with the OMS organization. Everyone's super friendly. It's just something that's really nice to be involved in. And I've started now also to contribute to the Communications Advisory Group. So that's a group of people from the OMS community. We've got MS, and from our perspective, we're sort of sharing ideas and giving feedback on the communication side, which again is very, very interesting, and a chance to meet other people, and get involved.
And then we always ask, so on a personal note, whether you have any interesting hobbies. And I think I probably know the answer to this already, based on you living in the mountains. That is probably not Scrabble. But what sort of stuff do you get up to at the weekend?
Yeah, well, it is. It's very. Because we live here, I guess you are pretty much. In winter, it's skiing and snowshoeing, and in summer, it's hiking and running. At the weekends, we've actually just invested in some mountain bikes, mountain bikes. So I'm looking forward to getting going on those. I mean, I can't keep up with my husband now on an ordinary bike, so I'm hoping that an e-bike will just help me get out a bit more than on a standard bike. And if it's raining, I'm in the kitchen experimenting with food.
And just as a final question, if you could tap into your personal experience for a nugget of wisdom to help people who are starting on the OMS program, what would that be?
I'm certainly one of those people who is kind of all or nothing. So I kind of launched myself into it at full tilt. But I think what I would really say is, I think back to this idea of positive attitude. And I think that doing things gradually and gradually adopting it is probably a good approach, because every step you take is a step towards this goal of helping yourself and following the program. And I think remaining positive and not being too hard on yourself if you can't adopt it immediately and overnight would be my sort of take on that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I'd like to thank you for joining us, Gillian.
Well, thank you too, and I've really enjoyed our chat today, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Living Well with MS Coffee Break. Please check out this episode's show notes at overcomingms.org/podcast. You'll find all sorts of useful links and bonus information there. If you would like to be featured in a future Coffee Break episode or have any suggestions, please email us at podcast@overcomingms.org. You can also subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Living Well with MS Coffee Break is kindly supported by a grant from the Happy Charitable Trust. If you would like to support the Overcoming MS charity and help keep our podcast advertising free, you can donate online at overcomingms.org/donate. Thank you for your support. Living Well with MS Coffee Break is produced by Overcoming MS, the world's leading multiple sclerosis healthy lifestyle charity. We are here to help inform, support and empower everyone affected by MS. To find out more and subscribe to our e-newsletter, please visit our website at overcomingms.org. Thanks again for tuning in and see you next time.